microphone.
So English is one?
English is one.
Perfect,
Yes.
thank you.
So whenever you're ready, I'll
Do the music.
get to the music. Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can hear me. Silent conference. So can I ask you all please to put these devices on your head? Number 1 is English, number 2 is French, and number 3 is Arabic. I'm Giles Dixon. I am the CEO of Wind Europe. Thank you very much for coming along this afternoon to hear this discussion about how can the EU meet its target that wind energy should be 43% of all of the electricity we consume in Europe by 2030. Today, it is just 15%. Now, Jutta, going from 15 to 43%. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jutta Paulus, member of the European Parliament. Jutta, this growth of wind means lots of new wind farms, both onshore and offshore. Today, it's quite challenging getting planning permission and permits to build new wind farms. What do we need to do to improve the permitting?
Exactly, Giles. That's one of our greatest challenges because today it needs up to 8 or even 10 years to get the approval for a wind park. So I'm very happy that we are now taking action at the European stage, saying that member states have to improve their permitting processes, making it clear that as soon as you hand in a complete dossier with environmental impact assessment and everything that belongs to it, you have a maximum of 2 years to get your wind park authorized. And I have heard a lot of criticism, especially from environmental NGOs, saying you're doing away with AHUs, you're doing away with environmental protection to ramp up wind energy. And I think we really have to be careful in that process because, of course, we must protect nature because the biodiversity crisis is at least as large as the climate crisis. But the ramp up of wind doesn't mean that you have to lower down environmental standards. You have to have a very good spatial planning. You really should look at where are sensitive areas where wind parks should not be built and where are areas where this is possible. And let me clear up another misunderstanding because I'm coming from Germany and we already have the Vorranggebiete, meaning priority areas for wind. Well, that does not mean that you're not allowed to build a wind park elsewhere. It just means that you have super quick planning and authorization in the Vorranggebiete, in the priority areas, and only normal quick procedure in the other areas. And actually, Germany is doing its homework right now by declaring renewable energy as overriding public interest so that, let's say, not so important issues cannot stand in the way. For example, in my constituency, there were wind parks which were not approved due to visual lines to be disturbed by the wind park. Sorry, we cannot afford this anymore. We must protect nature, we must protect our heritage, but we cannot go for people not wanting to see wind power anywhere. And anyone claiming, well, not do it here, please then tell us where to do it. And don't tell us very far away from my home. That won't do.
Thank you, Jutta. And these changes to simplify the permitting rules and procedures that you are taking forward in the European Parliament right now, together with the 27 EU member states, they will simplify permitting in all areas and not just in the permitting areas. Is that correct? The priority areas?
That is my understanding, and that is also what we should do. We must take care that we are fending off there are also people trying to do away with, like, the Aarhus Convention, which grants the public access to legal procedures when environmental law is violated. So, of course, we will keep the Aarhus Convention. There is no question about that.
And you're not changing the biodiversity rules. The EU Birds Directive and Habitats Directive, they stay as they are. Is that right?
They stay as they are, and I spoke to Nicolas Notaro when he was still head of conservancy in DG Envy, and he said that the claims that were often used by, let's say, anti-wind groups in Germany claiming that this would violate the Habitats Directive due to potential killing of an individual bird. And Nicolas told me the Habitats Directive was never about individual specimen, it was always about populations, about preserving the conditions for populations to thrive, for populations to grow. But if you would look, to take another example, if you would apply the same to, for example, roads or trains, not a single road, not a single rail track could be built because there are more birds dying in transport than by wind farms.
Just for the record, for every one collision between a wind turbine and a bird in Europe today, there are 900 collisions between birds and moving vehicles and 2,500 collisions, sadly, between birds and buildings. Antonella Battaglini, the CEO of the Renewables Grid Initiative. Antonella, you're heavily involved in what needs to happen with the build-out of grids, transmission networks to integrate more renewables. You're also working with the biodiversity NGOs to make sure they're happy with the build-out of wind energy. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Thank you very much. Indeed, I want to add a bit to what Jutta Paulus just said by starting saying that the spatial planning is an essential tool to allocate space for wind, but it should be used also to allocate spaces to nature and people. So we need to bring these two together. And Giles, yes, there are more birds that are crashing against buildings, but we need to be more specific of what we are talking about. Not all birds are the same. And so we need to understand that complementing spatial planning with sensitivity maps is probably the most robust process that we can do to accelerate deployment of wind and grids. Now, if we build a lot of wind and we don't build grids, we have done nothing. Actually, we have wasted a lot of resources. Electricity grids are the most efficient way to electrify and decarbonize the European economies. And very often, proponents of renewable energies have been too silent about the need for grids. And also, policymakers have been too silent about the needs for electricity grids. So we need to plan both renewable energies, wind and solar, and electricity grids jointly so that we can optimize as much as possible our limited resources and our limited space.
And are you confident that the biodiversity NGOs and other groups will support the massive expansion of wind energy?
Well, I think that there is a lot of willingness to walk that path, but we need to prove that we are indeed taking care of nature. And definitely the restoration law that is currently under discussion is very important, because together with increasing renewable targets and related grids, we need to also prove that we can restore and protect nature. Very often people are not happy of putting everything in one basket, but I believe that only by putting everything in one basket and perceiving these multiple goals jointly, this is the only way to find the solutions. And so with the work we do together, Giles, looking for compromises, looking for new approaches to energy and nature, it is a joint path.
Thank you, Antonella. John Lithamith, Global Head of Public Affairs at the turbine manufacturer Siemens Gamesa. John, your company is making turbines for wind farms onshore and offshore all over Europe. Your company is very conscious of the need to align with environmental interests, but that's not the only area of happy coexistence that is important for the build out of wind. We're taking a lot of land, a lot of space in the sea. Who are the other groups that you need to work closely and sensitively with?
Thank you very much, Giles. I would like to add to what both Jutta and Antonella were just addressing, that, first of all, to the discussion that you have opened regarding reaching 43% of the wind by 2030, I think that we have another element onto the table, which is energy security. So on that front, I think that with the current acceleration of permitting that we are asking, what we are bringing on board, we are not newcomers into the market. I mean, we have been building wind farms onshore, offshore for 30 years. We have proven to deliver by also protecting the nature and biodiversity. So what we are saying currently, I think it is that all the value and experience that we have gained throughout all those years, we are calling for the European Commission to accelerate permitting because we have the value. It is the same example, I would say, as we have been capable to reduce the cost of energy wind-wise 70% in the last 10 years. Are our turbines less reliable for that? No. What we are calling regarding acceleration of permitting is putting all the expertise that we bring on board to protect biodiversity and to engage with key stakeholders like fishermen, like landowners, agricultural stakeholders with whom we are already in close contact, and also with local communities to bring social benefits when we are building wind farms all along Europe.
Great. Antonella.
The European Commission and the Parliament, the European Parliament, they have to be very proactive in creating a minimum benchmark of how companies, project developers behave. Because Siemens Gamesa may have had very good track record of what you have been doing, but others do not. And we know that Europe is a very mixed variety of countries, and that there are different standards and different approaches. So it is absolutely relevant that we try to act well everywhere, in every corner, because a bad reputation has no limit. And the other thing is that very often we talk about birds, nature protection, but let's not forget that there are also people. I agree fully with Jutta that people should not be allowed to stop anything, but we should also start thinking that we need some local benefits to those communities that are already heavily impacted by energy infrastructure, and there will be so much more coming. So let's be considerate that people have to be bring along, otherwise we have no transition.
Jutta.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think it is, and I'm reminding Kadri Simpson constantly that she is in charge of actually be the guardian of the treaties, be the guardian of European law. And in the Clean Energy Package, which came into force 2019, there was a deadline for all member states to grant European citizens the right to produce, to store, and to sell their own energy, and to grant that right also to renewable energy communities, to share energy between them. And this has not been fully implemented in not a single European member state. So I'm constantly reminding the Commission that they should become active here, because exactly for the reasons that you have said. What we have experienced in Germany, as soon as it is a local renewable energy community that has a share in the wind park and that brings local benefit to the community. For example, in Hunsrück, which is a real conservative area, there was a very active governor who said, this is an opportunity for our region. So people now don't say, oh, this wind turbine is ugly. They say, this wind turbine is paying for our kindergarten, and that one over there is paying for our public transport. And so it's a totally different approach, and for people, as soon as they see it brings benefits for me, for my life, for my life of my children, it's much more acceptable. And what comes with that is we have a lot of private investment which could be unleashed. And these are not investors that have 1 million to spend, but that have maybe 1,000 euro to spend. But if you take 1,000 people with 1,000 euro each, you also have 1 million. And you have public acceptance. So I really think this could be a game changer if the citizens' energy rights would finally be rolled out all over Europe.
Thank you, Jutta. Kadri Simpson, EU Energy Commissioner, whom Jutta has just mentioned, will be joining us at 3:10, and she will be giving a speech and then talking to us. Antonella.
Yes, and we need the same for electricity grids. Because, again, if we are not really careful, the grid is already today the bottleneck, and it will continue to be the bottleneck. So it takes much longer to build electricity grids than a wind park, correct? Yes. So we need to really put a focus on electricity grids, because if we don't build electricity grids, we are going to do a lot of molecules that will, of course, can be used, but they will add pressure to nature and people, because you have huge losses in the conversion, and of course, when you have losses, means you need more resources, and definitely you need more space. So definitely we will do some molecules, but let's give priority to electrification, and for this we need electricity grids.
And are you confident, Antonella, that the electricity transmission system operators want to build those more grids and that they will build them?
Well, I met Manon van Beek, the CEO of TenneT, I think 2 weeks ago, and she told me that just TenneT is going to invest 9 billion euro only to connect the offshore in the North Sea. So the answer is yes. They are ready, they are willing, and we got to do it together.
Thank you. John.
Yes, I would like to add, we were speaking about the generation part. We were talking about transmission, which is the bottleneck, but we currently also have the bottleneck of the industry. We have had energy policies, but I think that we have lacked of energy industrial policies. So currently we are living the paradox that, having been in the sector for 20 years already, we have never had the targets that we currently have. But it is also true that we have never faced the situation that the industry, the European industry, is living to deliver the 43% by 2030. Which may be the reason for that? I think that, of course, we should be, between brackets, blaming into the pandemic. We should be also blaming into the Ukraine invasion, the impact on that, energy security. But it is also true that some of the main drivers have been the race to the bottom, the way that auctions have been designed, for example. The main driver for all the procurement of power has been price, and we have seen that that has not been a solution. We have been, all the European wind manufacturers, we are currently financially struggling. And the point is that if we want to deliver, we have a globally leading industry in Europe to deliver the wind energy, the energy transition. It would be a pity that the 43% by 2030 is not delivered by the European global leading wind industry currently.
What do governments need to do?
What we need to do, and I think governments are more eager than ever to listen to the industry, because they really see how much we are struggling. So what we are sharing with them is, look, first of all, permitting. We have to accelerate permitting to bring high targets into real projects, first. Second, auction design. You shouldn't only be considering price as the only driver, rather than you should include also qualitative criteria, where you consider how much we are benefiting the local communities, how much we are investing in R&D, how much manufacturing we have in Europe. For example, we as Siemens Gamesa, we have 2/3 of our footprint is in Europe. How much we are implementing sustainable solutions, for example, free SF gas transformers, recyclable blades. So all of these elements have to be included into the mix, because otherwise what is going to happen is that only price doesn't provide energy security. It is costing more, and that is not sustainable in the long run.
And you don't want governments running those auctions where the wind industry has to pay the government for the privilege of building the wind farm.
Of course, all related to mainly offshore, negative bidding and capped seabed leases. This is just making money in the short term, but it is putting additional pressure to the supply chain, to an already struggled supply chain.
Look what happened to those 3G, 4G telecoms licenses. Nokia, Ericsson almost went out of business.
That's it.
Yeah.
We are not starting from scratch. What we are calling governments is to listen what occurred with the telecom industry and what occurred with a leading also solar PV industry in Europe some years ago. We don't have a solar PV industry now in Europe.
Antonella.
I fully agree with that, and of course, adding sustainability criteria to the bidding schemes is absolutely relevant. But also, there are other elements that the European Commission and all member states have to be extremely careful. For example, the discussion on lead, banning lead from the European Union, this would lead to increasing dependencies. Essentially, if we do not support European companies and European supply chains, we are going to move from one dependency to another. And of course, I fully agree with you, John. It's not the cheapest, it's not what costs less, but what is more sustainable and long term. And up to now, there is not really this mentality into the European bidding and permitting processes. The energy regulators, especially in the grid business, they are always still looking at the cheapest possible solution, where the cheapest possible solution ends up being the most expensive for consumers.
So, Jutta.
I just have a question. Why would banning lead increase our dependency?
Because lead is used in subsea cables, so they will need an extension before they find a commercial activity. And if lead is banned to be used in manufacturing processes within Europe, it means that there will be products coming from outside of the European Union. And so we not only destroyed a European industry, but also we export the dangers of lead elsewhere. And so in this context, and of course lead should be banned, but some industries should be given the time to find the commercial alternatives. And exporting pollution has been a regular attitude of certain regions of the world, and we should stop doing that, and we are at the COP. So it's a perfect fitting place to say this.
Well, actually, my understanding was that if the lead ban was brought into the REACH regulation, then of course the import would as well be banned. So you wouldn't be necessarily just exporting the pollution.
No, it's not. And we do not have an alternative to subsea cables coating. And therefore, if we really want to see the expansion of offshore, in particular, across all the European sea basins, we need also a solution for this.
Jutta, the supply chain is very strong in Germany, but it's got weaker in recent years. You used to have 150,000 jobs in wind in Germany. Now it's only 100,000 because the previous government was messing things up, and so a lot of factories had to close. Are people in Germany aware of this?
They are, and they are increasingly concerned about this. And we are really happy that at least solar industry is now starting to come back. So I visited Meyer Burger during my summer tour, and it was really, really impressive looking at what they're doing, how they're doing it. But interestingly, they told me that they basically got successful like 10, 15 years back during the first real big ramp up of solar in Germany, because they sold the equipment to make solar panels to China, only to find out that the Chinese engineers were very, very good at copying. So what they're doing now, instead of building the equipment and exporting it, they're using it to build the panels themselves, and they're not giving up any licensing out of their out of their company in order to prevent this to ever happen again. And they plan to go to 3 gigawatts in 2025. So 3 gigawatt solar panel production every year. But we don't just need one Meyer Burger in Germany, and I know that there are a few other factories all over Europe. We need a massive ramp up in order to be able to really fuel our own energy transition and not, as you have said, Antonella, exchange one dependency by another. And I think what's also important is actually the skilling up of people, not only for producing panels, but also for putting them on roofs, on facades, on the fields, because that was the sector which actually lost the most in Germany. It wasn't so much the manufacturers in solar, it was the people on the ground that were working on it. And I believe it's a bit similar when it comes to wind. If you look at price only, people will work with, let's say, underpaid workforce, which are not very good at delivering quality work because they're not properly skilled, and that is also something that we really should take into focus.
John, turbine manufacturer Siemens Gamesa, you have loads of factories all over Europe. Is it a challenge getting the staff? What are you doing to train people out there so they can come and work for you?
Well, that is one of the, let's say, one of the key drivers. I mean, if you put additional pressure to wind turbine manufacturers, it is extremely difficult to get this training locally. So this is the reason why, Giles, what we are saying is, it is fantastic that under the Repower EU program, for example, we want to develop a local supply chain, not to depend so much on regions out of Europe on certain components for the energy transition. And I think that currently, maybe with the Critical Materials Act expected to be enacted by 2023, we might develop, but that is not going to happen from one year to the other. So for the good, Europe has taken the pioneer and the leading globally in expanding the capabilities of wind power, but we are still heavily reliant on global competitive supply chains. So we have to keep the two paths. We have to, let's say, what we are suggesting is that we foster cooperation for these global competitive supply chains to remain. The opportunity that currently wind markets globally shouldn't bring us to protectionism from a trade perspective, because that is going to delay the energy transition, that is going to delay energy security, and that is, when delivered, it is going to be the energy transition more expensive. So we should be playing the wind business diplomacy globally, while of course we are the first ones interested in developing these local capabilities, not to depend so much on certain regions of the world to deliver.
We've talked about the wind turbine manufacturers. Then you've got the companies that actually invest in the wind farms, the so-called developers, often very big utilities like Iberdrola, Enel, and so on. They're being affected now by government interventions in electricity markets. Is that right? Would any of you like to comment on this and what we should be doing on electricity market design? Jutta.
Well, I think the first goal should be to look at the energy market in a holistic way, not at electricity alone, because due to the different taxes, levies, and so forth in different member states, often the actual sector coupling is hindered by the market design. So as long as we are burning one single molecule of gas to produce heat, while at the same time curtailing wind electricity production, we're doing something wrong. We're not being efficient. We are not even being effective. So that is something where we really should look into, look at the sector coupling, look at the possibilities to have the demand side load shifting, which is much underdeveloped. There was a study from this Norwegian consulting company saying that by exploiting all potential that is there already today to shift load from peak load to times where we have a lot of renewable energy, we would save 70 billion euro for European electricity customers each year, only with the potential which is already there today. But market design doesn't reward this. And this is something where we really urgently have to act. And that would be my first when it comes to market design, aside from many other things.
Thank you, Antonella.
Well, we need to make a distinction of what we are talking about. With the current energy prices, I think a lot of decisions have been taken for adjustments in the markets, and we need to make sure that these short-term decisions, sometimes also not very useful ones, are not going to be embedded in the future market design. The future market design is a completely different world, a different discussion, where we need to, in a certain way, improve the current market design to accommodate very large shares of renewables because it was designed for a different energy future. But these short-term measures are dangerous and they should be treated very carefully.
Thank you, Antonella. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have with us on the screen, you can see her, Eurovision Song Contest winner and now Global Ambassador for Renewable Energy, Ruslana Lizichko. Ruslana, welcome.
My dear friends, before I will ask you for something for Ukraine, I would like to bring the energy, clean energy of all Ukrainians, and to say a great thanks for everything you do for Ukraine, for us. Dear Giles, thank you for this conversation and for chance to bring not just messages, just information. I think everybody understands about situation about energy in the world for the best. Yes, I'm ambassador and I provide 100 renewable. So 100 renewable now I just developed faster than before this bloody war was activated by Putin. So the situation in Ukraine is still very difficult. You can feel it by vibration of my voice. I'm a professional singer and I can use my voice, but when I speak about this bloody war, I can, you know, just fix my voice, and it's very difficult to know that through this conversation, somebody in Ukraine will be killed. Maybe even children, just people. So what I'm doing, the situation, in my opinion, with the energy in the world now. Today, Putin destroyed our life with his own war. Today, Putin brings us energy crisis for our civilization. For the first time ever, this is the biggest challenge for all of us. Putin used the energy as a weapon. The situation in Ukraine. Today, Putin destroyed energy infrastructure, you know that, with the news. He destroyed our energy every day, every moment. Even two biggest nuclear energy power plant, like Chernobyl and Energodar, you know that. Putin's war destroyed energy of Ukraine for the most difficult period of the year. So, all Ukrainians who live in Ukraine, who are still in Ukraine right now, don't like to leave our country. So we live without electricity, without light every day, even me. So we call it genocide. And I call Europe and people of the world, just help Ukraine with the energy and give us the energy and help us and win together. For that, we started with the very unique action and a project initiative. We call it Renew Day for Ukraine. So this is the project to ask everybody for donation with the energy, with any technologies. It doesn't matter the form, but Ukraine needs the energy. The more people will unite around 100 renewable, the more resonance we have. That is why I believe for conversation like we have now. Don't stop speak about the clean energy and 100 renewable, even for one day. I believe that our unity around or for new energy strategy will bring us a victory. I believe for next or maybe highest level of the energy strategy, new energy strategy, I believe for energy independent. Maybe it's about we have this bloody, terrible war, but I announced it before, just provide not only 100 renewable and use a clean energy source, but also to be new energy generation, to be owner of the energy, produce it, create it, make the energy as the biggest resource and power of the people. Energy is not a weapon. Energy is an art, in my opinion. And I know that for our civilization, there is no place anymore for any energy monopoly. No energy terror, no energy chantage. Stop it. About wind energy, as you know, or maybe not, I personally choose wind energy. It's my choice. And I perform and create a lot of pop music video on wind turbine in the sky. We also presented together with Wind Europe Association as the best content to promote and provide 100 renewable wind energy for the people, just for society, to change our mentality. It works, it helps. My first video, I shoot it in Kherson region. So this is absolutely unique video for this time. In my opinion, I believe for wind energy is a base technology for any energy independent station or model, in my opinion. Wind energy is a platform, is a technology, and then plus sun, energy panels, plus hydro to produce green hydrogen or other. Ukraine have a great potential. We can produce green energy. So this is the time we ask you help us for energy, but we will bring you green energy more and more and more, maybe as a hub, maybe as a pilot for new strategy to be energy independent. And now I would like to announce with my special video I prepare for this conversation, for this event. Just 5 minutes your attention for your understanding how deep I feel renewable energy, clean energy by my heart.
Ruslana, can I just interrupt you there? Thank you so much for everything you have said. We are about to hear from EU Energy Commissioner Kadri Simpson. I am sure she will confirm what all of us are thinking in this room, listening to you, that we in Europe really want to help you achieve 100% renewable energy in Ukraine, and you can count on our full support. Before I give the floor to the Commissioner, I'm just going to ask the other panelists, Jutta, John, Antonello, if you have any questions you'd like to put to Ruslana. Jutta.
Yes, thanks. Thank you so much, Ruslana, for your great words. It's an honor to have you with us. And my question would be, how is the perception of Ukrainian people towards wind and solar energy? Are they all as positive about renewable energy as you are, or are there reservations? Thank you.
People understand that we need to provide a new energy system like cluster, like mini grid, to use the new technology more and more and more. Absolutely, you're absolutely right. After 1 month without any electricity, people are just thinking not about how we can use the old energy. So people want to stop it because we was dependent from Russia gas and transited. So now all Europe also understand the same situation, like all Ukrainians. So we choose 100 renewable because we want to be energy independent. So everybody in Ukraine, not just understand it, but want it and start with this strategy for even for just for family, for small city, it doesn't matter how big the region. So now I have conversation with different regions and try to help people with the information. So what we need exactly, so more information about how we can provide different technologies. And I believe that wind farm could be very, very important for Ukraine because why I believe for wind energy farm, because not so much land we use, so it's a very unique system when we but Ukraine has a great wind as a power. So finally, yes, all Ukrainians not just believe but want to be energy independent and go 100 renewables.
Thank you very much, Ruslana. Stay with us. We'll be coming back to you. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you all EU Energy Commissioner Kadri Simpson. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Giles. Good afternoon. And well, you are putting me in very delicate position because now it's me between you and Ruslana's new video. So this is a burden to carry. I wanted to start with sharing my deepest concern what is happening in Ukraine. I was in Kiev 2 weeks ago. I met President Zelensky, I met Energy Minister Galushenko, and I saw with my own eyes what disruption Russia has created with their missile and drone attacks, targeting not only power plants, but also district heating substations and transmission lines. And I can confirm that we are reaching out to all the global suppliers who can, as fast as possible, to deliver this very specific equipment. And some of them will weight as much as 200 tons. So this is a challenge, also logistical challenge, but we do our utmost to help Ukrainians at this very moment. And then, of course, in our hydrogen strategy, we do see that Ukraine will be our key partner from where we can one day receive green hydrogen, because Ukraine has vast potential to produce wind energy and solar energy. And as you know, President von der Leyen made a commitment that each month, starting from January, we will deliver 1.5 billion euros just to help Ukraine at this current situation. Altogether, 18 billion euros next year. But this is just for this emergency situation. We are also committed to help Ukraine to rebuild its economy. Now, coming to the wind energy as such, I remember that it was only last year in Glasgow when we discussed wind energy, because it was a very moment when we presented our very ambitious offshore wind strategy, and wind energy was also core of our Fit for 55 proposal, how to replace fossil fuels with renewables. And already then we knew that this is a most promising avenue, and today ramping up both onshore and offshore wind is even more important because urgency is here. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we have committed to end our dependency of Russian fossil fuels as soon as possible. So, of course, partially we will manage to do so by saving energy, but we are also dependent on fuel switch. Where we can, we will replace fossil natural gas with renewable electricity, and by 2030, our aim is that 45% of our energy consumption will be covered by renewables. And we estimate that in order to achieve such a target, wind energy in the EU would need to reach a 31% share of installed capacity. And this increase of 12 percentage points compared to 2020 is an ambitious target. You have already heard from other speakers today that we are not yet fully on path that would allow us to get there, but I would like to focus for some key elements where European Commission is doing our part to speed up the things. First, permitting. We all know that this is a significant bottleneck. In some cases, projects might take up to 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And in May, already this May, we put forward a proposal to make the permitting process more effective and to ensure it doesn't take more than 2 years. Our co-legislators are still negotiating their positions. And just to be sure that we will not lose 2023, last week Commission also presented a bridging instrument that will be in the form of regulation. For example, granting all renewables, including wind, the status of overriding public interest and streamlining the permit granting process for empowering renewable energy projects. And if member states will agree, this regulation will come into force immediately. It will be temporary until member states will be able to transpose Repower EU into their national legislation. Second, a supportive regulatory environment. It is obvious that for rapid development, any sector needs a regulatory framework that makes it possible. And there is also more that we can do. I often hear from the industry that they need more transparency and understanding of auctions planning and support schemes. And sometimes the pace of auctions is slow and not in line with our ambitious targets. The Renewable Energy Directive already tells the member states to publish a long-term schedule for support allocation. And as we check the transposition of the Renewable Energy Directive, we expect the member states to make their long-term plans more visible and predictable so that the industry can plan accordingly. And third is funding. There are already several EU funds that finance renewable energy. We can finance renewable projects via Recovery and Resilience Fund, using ETS revenues and from the cohesion funds, and now also using common agricultural policy funds. And to unlock industrial investment, we have doubled the funding available for 2022 large-scale call of the Innovation Fund, around 3 billion euros. And we are also creating a specific Repower window to support innovative clean tech manufacturing. And in parallel, we have set up a temporary crisis framework for state aid to address the economic disturbances. And finally, I want to highlight the commitment of the member states to develop wind-based energy. But this is clear that some sea basins are more advanced. North Sea, Baltic Sea, the regional cooperation is really showing the higher ambition than we expected and we dared to expect only 2 years ago. This is impressive scale that they have committed, and the other 3 sea basins, they just have to to follow the lead, and then there is no doubt that we will achieve our 2030 targets on renewables. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm very much willing to see Ruslana's new video.
Thank you very much indeed, Commissioner. Commissioner, do stay here, if you may. Before we look at Ruslana's video, could I just invite the panelists to respond to what you've said and perhaps ask you some questions? Jutta, perhaps would you like to go first?
Giles, and thank you, Kadri, for your speech. It was really powerful. And I think what is also crucial, besides the points that you have mentioned, is, and you will not be surprised to hear this, empowering citizens, because we have made the experience that if it is a citizens-led renewable energy community planning a wind park, building a solar park, even deploying efficiency projects, the acceptance is much, much larger. And therefore, I think it would be really favorable if the Commission would step a bit on member states' toes and make them implement the clean energy package when it comes to citizens' energy rights. Thank you.
Would you like to respond?
Well, of course, I do agree. And of course, we know that in some member states, permitting takes a lesser time than in others. And in our Repower EU communication, there was a annex, accompanying document that shared the best practices all across Europe. So where local communities do have the feeling of ownership, there it's easier to find agreement that is necessary to launch new wind parks, for example. And this is something that we share with member states, and we do expect that they do learn their lessons, how to achieve targets with the help of local communities.
John.
Thank
John
you very-
Lefame from Siemens Gamesa.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for your leadership as well, not only for Repower EU, but also SBEC Declaration, Marienborg Declaration. I think that the bet for wind in Europe and the willingness to take the lead is clear. What we, as a representative of industry, together with Giles, we really think that this is a great opportunity for Europe, not only to lead clean energy-wise, but also clean technology and delivery-wise. I think that we have a global leading wind industry in Europe. We have to foster such leadership with some of the measures that you were mentioning, for example, increasing innovation fund, increasing funding to manufacturing facilities, to ensure that we can bring these socio-economic benefits to Europe. It is about jobs, sustainable jobs, investment in R&D, sustainable solutions. We have a great opportunity and we need your leadership. And also, if I may, I think that it is a great opportunity for Europe to collaborate with other regions so that we can deliver energy transition with the capabilities to have. I think it is a good suggestion. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Would you like to respond to that?
Indeed, and I would add one more aspect where we can be helpful, and this is co-financing the cross-border energy infrastructure, because better interconnected electricity markets can deliver more and accommodate more renewables. And not only inside the European Union, but we are also financing subsea cables and cables as such that connect us with our closest neighbors. And in this regard, Ruslana was asking us how we can support Ukraine and replace some of the lost power generation. We are also investing into the grid that connects Ukraine with European markets, so that at this moment where Ukraine is in need, we can also send them some electricity so much needed this winter.
Antonella.
Thank you very much. And I think one additional point to put on the table is the role of ACER, because today energy regulators and ACER are still looking at the cheapest option, with sustainability considered only to be a carbon reduction. But in order to have a timely energy transition and a fair energy transition, we need to embrace the broad concept of sustainability, and it would be really great if you can do something maybe to enhance the mandate of ACER to have a broader attention to sustainability. And one additional thing, European industries need to be protected somehow, and I think a European industrial strategy should be fundamentally based on recycling and reusing, because Europe is a net importer of everything, and so recycling is going to be probably the future for this continent.
Commissioner.
ACER is a very valuable partner of ours, and they are providing us analysis. Even despite the fact that right now we are presenting emergency temporary measures to tackle this energy crisis, there is in parallel ongoing work how we can upgrade our current electricity market design in the way that we will keep all the benefits, but current benefits, but also will will bring to the retail consumers the benefits that higher share of renewables can bring. And this analysis actually comes from Acer. So without their work, I hope that they're working and analyzing this day and night, like we do with our temporary measures, is a key, so that we will not make a mistake when this electricity market design proposal will be ready by the end of March next year.
Commissioner, you mentioned the temporary measures, 180 euros a megawatt hour, the revenue cap on wind farms and other inframarginal generators. Member states can have lower caps than that. They can have different caps for different technologies. That's already sending some confusing signals to investors, and we're slightly worried about that. But worst of all, there are some member states that are implementing the emergency measures in a way that goes against the letter and the spirit of what was agreed by ministers. Some member states are ignoring the fact that wind farms have hedged their revenues. They're applying the revenue cap irrespectively. Romania is doing that, for example. Some member states are not just putting a cap on revenues, they're taxing the revenues as well. Spain wants to do that. Can you reassure us that you will be vigilant with those member states and ensure they apply the letter of the law that's been agreed in the temporary measures?
Indeed, in temporary measure, we introduced a cap, 180 euros, and gave member states who introduced their national measures earlier a right to do so. But keeping in mind that we need to keep the electricity market, single electricity market alive, that means that we do have our responsibility to guide member states in the spirit of the single market.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner. Let us now enjoy Ruslana's video for the final few moments. Ruslana, back to you. Show us your video. Thank you so much, Commissioner.
My dear friends, I'm Ruslana. I'm a Ukrainian singer, an ambassador in renewable energy in the world. And I appeal to everybody, but from all Ukrainians who stay and live in Ukraine right now, like me. Ukraine needs the energy. My country needs the power. That is why I ask everybody to help Ukraine with the energy. For that, we organize a special event, a special project. We call it Renew Day for Ukraine. And my proposition, to stop this terrible bloody war together. And I have 5 arguments, but let me tell it by my language. Українці не винні в тому, що Путін почав руйнувати енергетичні об'єкти України. Що Путін і російські варвари окупували Чорнобиль, вкрали Енергодар і бомбили, руйнували атомні енергостанції. Одні з найбільших у Європі. Українці не винні у цьому російському варварстві. І це аргумент перший. З моменту, як Путін почав відбирати в України енергію, це геноцид. І ми не можемо не бачити цього. З цього моменту війна з лінії фронту розповсюдилась на всю територію України. Бо в кожного українця сьогодні забирають Росія і Путін енергію. Аргумент другий. Якщо сьогодні не допомогти Україні, завтра лінія фронту буде значно далі. І вона піде на Європу. Єдине, що стримує сьогодні війну, це Україна і українці. Аргумент третій. Я не вірю, що є люди, які готові у теплі, маючи енергію, дивитися, як будуть замерзати українці, які будуть позбавлені енергії повністю. Аргумент четвертий. І я не вірю, що можна просто відвернутися від війни і не бачити, як гинуть в Україні люди. Як героїчно українці захищають свою країну і борються, і виборюють свою свободу, право на життя. Я не вірю, що можна відвернутися і піти спокійно займатися своїми справами. Ми ж люди. І аргумент п'ятий. Я звертаюся з проханням потерпіти цю зиму, витерпіти і бути разом з нами, поділитися своєю енергією з нами, українцями, допомогти нам енергетично вистояти. І тоді весна буде однозначно мирна. Слава Україні! І дякую всім, хто зараз мене чує. Renew Day for Ukraine. Акція спеціально, щоб зібрати допомогу Україні у вигляді енергії.
Thank you very much, Ruslana. That is tremendous. We'll leave the music playing. Arno, it's turned off whilst we leave. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you very much to the excellent panelists and to the interpreters. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to everybody who's taken part. Well done, thank you.